Good morning, and thanks for being here early in the morning. Okay, so we're going to page 75. Look at flexible budget. Okay, so when we stopped the last class, we show you how to flex the budget. So what we're going to do now is to look at a longer example on how we do the flexing. Where's my calculator? Okay. So they want us to flex the budget to the actual production, and then calculate the amount of variances. So usually to calculate variances is very straightforward. You just take what is the flex budget compared with the actual, then you get the variances. Okay, so it's not a very difficult step. It's just one extra work that you need to do. Okay, that's quite simple. Now there's no explanation, so we just want to see how to do it. Okay, right? Basically, they tell us that ACCA produces a single product on an assembly line, and now that the budgets were given. Now, if you see the question, gave you something like this, got 40 and 60,000 units. That means they have two different activity levels. Now, then it's very likely you need to use high-low method. Okay. Now, but there are cases where question they don't give you two columns. They only give you the cost, let's say at 40,000. This was one of the past here that the examiner gave before. Now in that case, there's no high-low, because you don't have two activity level, you cannot do high-low. So what you need to do is they will tell you the story, how they got the cost. And then you have to read and interpret the statement to determine yourself the amount. Okay? But anyway, the principle is the same. You must know whether cost is variable in nature or fixed in nature. Okay? Right, we see that there's material cost, direct, indirect, labor, direct, indirect, other production overhead, okay, then selling overhead, admin overhead. These are all the amount. Now you see notes are given. Okay, if it's just pure high-low method, it's very straightforward, because you just work out what's the difference in cost divided by difference in quantity. But normally they make it a little bit more complicated when they give you adjustment. Adjustment like what? Okay, for example, they say direct materials are given 5% discount. They have a 5% discount for quantity in excess of 50,000. Okay, so you're going to be very careful with this wording. So in excess means only above 50, there will be a discount. So anything less than that, there's no discount. Okay, so be careful with the wording. Now, so if you look at the quantity, right, this is 40. So that means this one you won't get discount, whereas this is 60. 60 means you've exceeded 50. That means you must have some with discount, some without discount. So if you read, you understand, then you can actually work out the figure and prove it, see whether you've got the right amount. Okay, so that's part of how you want to prove the figure. Now, direct labor will be given a bonus if it's in excess of 60. So only after you exceed 60, you get a bonus. And the bonus is based on 30% of the direct labor cost per unit. Okay, then indirect labor will increase by 3,000 when they exceed 60,000. Then other production overhead. Other production overhead will increase by 20,000 when the production exceeds 50, and another 25,000 when they exceed 60. Now these are the stories that will add up to your adjustment. Okay. Now the actual cost achieved at 65,000 units. So they've given you material, indirect, direct labor, overhead, selling, and admin. Okay. Now all these are all here. So what you're supposed to do now is to work out what's the flexible budget and what's the variant. Okay. So we are flexing at $65,000 unit. Okay, we're flexing at 65,000 unit. Okay, my first cost is direct material. So class, what you do now is you just think and see. Now I go back to the figure first, okay? This one got no discount. And we know direct material cost is usually variable in nature. Okay, direct material, so it's going to be variable in nature. So if it's variable in nature, then if I take 80,000 divide by 40,000 unit, you just divide over, correct enough? Then you should get $2 per unit. Well, logically it's $2 per unit, okay? So if $2 per unit, then with 60,000, you should be having 120K, correct enough? But they give discount. The discount is anything in excess of 50, I'll give a 5% discount. So 60,000 means you got 10,000 extra. So if you got 10,000 extra, the discount of 5% will be $20,000. 5% is $1,000. That means you get a 1,000 discount. That's why 120 minus 1,000 is 119. So you can see that that's how figures are being derived. Now in the exam you may not need to do all this checking, okay? But this is just to give you more confidence that you're on the right track. Now, so that's why in that case I know that it will be $2 per unit. How do I know it's $2 per unit? Now as I said, if I've taken 80 divided by 40,000 units, okay, now that will tell me it's $2 per unit. Now that $2 per unit, okay, it's up to you. You want to straight calculate 65, then minus discount also can. Or you want to calculate separately also can. Like if I calculate separately means I will do it that way lah. So multiply with 50,000. And then, okay, and then the 5% discount is 1.9, right? That will be for the balance 15,000 units. So 15,000. So we get 128,500. And the actual is 128. So we have a variant of $500, and the actual cost is lower, so this is favorable, okay? Now, so I've just done one for you. So you go on and try the next few for me, okay? Try the other few for me. Okay. Now, see, being indirect costs, you might have fixed element in it. Okay. So how do you know if there's a fixed element in it? Now, one way is you test it out. If I take the $32,000, right, divide by 40,000, okay. If 0.8 is my cost per unit, if I straight away multiply into 60,000, and I get the same figure with what I've got here, that means they are pure variable. But if I multiply with 60,000, they should be 48. But the amount is 42. But that shows inside this amount, you must have got some fixed element, or unless there's a discount like the material just now. But I read the question, they only say that indirect labor will increase by 3,000. That's the only thing that they tell me, that there's no other figure. So in that case, this indirect material, there's no issue. So if there's no issue, then we need to use high-low method, so that you find what's the variable amount and what's the fixed amount. Okay? Okay. So for the indirect material, now class, what you can do is you have a few ways lah. Okay. So the normal basic way, which you start from bottom, do all the way to the end, is like what we've been doing in the class. Now I'll do in this manner. See, the normal way of what we do is we use high-low, that the variable indirect material cost is 42 minus 32 divide by 60 minus 40. So it will be 10 divide 20. So you get 0.5 per unit. You're using high-low, okay? Okay. And then, right, your fixed indirect material, you take any amount, 42, then you minus out the variable portion. So if you take 42, then you must follow 60,000 because there's the cost at 60,000. So the variable cost will be 0.5, take out 60,000, so it's 30K. So we have 12,000. Now, so if you know the variable is 0.5, the fixed is 12,000, then what's the cost at 65K? So at 65,000 unit, right, you will be 0.5 times 65 plus the 12K. There's no other cost adjustment, correct? Now then you're going to get 0.5. So you will have 44,500. Now that's the cost. That's how you flex it. Follow, okay? Now, but class, you see, this way of doing is the fundamentals. That means you go back to basic and do all over again. All right, go back to basic and do all over again. Okay. Another way of doing is you based on our understanding about cost behavior. Now, class, you see. Right now at 60,000. Right now at 60,000, the cost is already given as 42K. Agree? It's already in the table there. At 60,000, the cost is already 42K. And that 42K is already including two elements, the fixed and the variable. The fixed is inside it. So the logic is, if you want to find the cost at 65 unit, Okay, you want to find the cost of 65,000 unit. Then you ask yourself, from 60,000 to 65,000, what will the change in the cost be? It's only the variable is changing, because the fixed cost won't change. So that's why from 60 to 65,000, logically is you will have variable cost for 5,000 unit goes up. But if you got other adjustment, then you must add in. But of course, if there's no other adjustment, then that should be the logic, that 5,000 unit will be increased in the variable cost. So this 5,000 unit increase in variable cost, how do I calculate? Now, so I will do it in this manner. That's my working. So I will say that 42,000 plus. Now, if I take 42 minus 32 divide by 60 minus 40. Now, this is the formula for variable cost. Then I know the variable cost per unit is 0.5 already. Then I straight away multiply with 5,000. And you must get 445. Now, you just do one line of working, you get the same answer. Rather than you got to do again so many things. So this is the second approach. Now, in the exam, which one you're more comfortable, it's up to you. Especially when you know you got objective question. Objective question, the critical thing is what time. You must be fast. So if everything you do all the way from the start, you cannot finish the exam on time. So you got to be faster. Okay, so that's how I'm going to get the second answer. So fill in the blank. So I got it as 445. And my actual is whole to be 436. So the cost is 900 favorable as well. The variance is 900 favorable. Okay, go on. Now class, we have direct labor. Now again, direct labor is direct cost. Okay, direct cost. So direct cost, then it should be all variable in nature. Now if you do a quick test, is you take 128 divide by 40, multiply by 60. Now you got 192. So very straightforward, no adjustment. So that's how you get cost per unit. Now if the cost per unit is by taking whatever amount divided by the quantity. Now the only adjustment we have here is what? That they say if anything exceeds 60,000, they will give you a 30% bonus. Only exceed got bonus, right? Okay, then very simple. Now is 192,000 already. Correct. Now is 192. 192 is for how many units? 60. So I just need to add the extra 5,000. Okay, how much is the extra 5,000? Now what's the cost per unit? Yeah, 1 unit, how much is that? Now 192 divided by 60, yeah? 1 unit is 3.2. Okay, correct. 1 unit is 3.2. But you will give them bonus, right? So it's not 3.2, it's higher by 30%. So I multiply with 1.3 to add in the bonus. Okay, bonus 30%. So I add in the bonus. And I multiply with 5,000 units. So 3.2 times 1.3 times 5,000 plus 192. The cost is 212,800. And the actual amount is 223,400. Now this time your actual cost is higher, so this is adverse, okay? Okay, go on. Right, indirect labor. Okay, indirect labor. Now, the only thing that they tell me about indirect labor is to say that you will increase 3,000 when you exceed 60. Now, there's only after you exceed, but so far, the amount that they gave me is up to 60. There's nothing exceeding one. That means the cost here will not have any adjustment yet. Okay. So if the cost here got no adjustment yet, then how much will the amount be if I want to calculate 65,000 units? Now, we use back the technique we say just now. At 60,000, the indirect labor is already 47K. We're going to add it by the variable cost of 5,000. Now, how do you get variable cost of 5,000? Now, variable cost of 5,000 is 47,000 minus 33,000 divide by 20,000 unit multiplied by 5,000 unit. That's the variable cost. And again, class, the thing is not only the variable cost will increase. Because the note says that the fixed cost also must increase 3K because the cost is stacked in nature. You exceed certain level, the fixed cost go higher. Now 3,000, so you just add another 3,000. This is very simple, okay? Right, so amount will come to 47, 33, 53,005. Right, the actual amount is told to be 50,002. So we have a variant 3003 favorable. Okay, now 3 more figure. Other production overhead. Working 3. Selling overhead. Admin overhead. Now you know the steps on how you get the figure. So you do one more for me. Just other production overhead. How much should the amount be? Okay, you can get this in less than a minute. Just try that for me. Now, see, the only issue we have here with the other production overhead is the mention here that the overhead increased by 20 when they exceed 50. Then they will increase another 25 when they exceed 60. Now, the issue is this 20, it's already inside the 60,000. Because after you reach 60, you must have increased by 20. Right? So you have included the 20K fixed cost. Okay, you have included 20K fixed cost. So when you do your high-low method, you got to make sure that this 20K you take it out first. If not, your calculation is inaccurate. Okay, so what we're going to do now is like this. Now, at 60,000, right, the amount is 218. I want to increase the variable cost for 5K, okay? So what's my variable cost for 5K? Now normally we take the difference in the cost, which is 218 minus 142. But then as I said, this 218 you have included the 20. So you take out the 20 first. Now I take out the 20. Then only I minus with the 142 to divide it by 20,000 times 5. Now this is the variable cost for 5,000. So class, after you get the variable cost for 5,000, please don't forget, when the quantity exceeds 60,000, they will increase by another 25. That means you must add another 25K inside. Now you only add another 25, you don't add another 20 because the 20 is already inside the 218. We only minus out the 20 here for purpose to calculate variable cost only. Okay? Now, so your amount should be 218 divide 20 times 5 plus 218 plus 25. You should be getting 257. Okay? So I bring the numbers up again. So 257. Now the actual amount is 241,060. So again, it's favorable. Okay, in terms of selling overhead, now I don't see any story mentioned about selling overhead. So I want to know whether this is variable or not variable or mixed cost. So what I'll do, I'll do the same experiment. I'll just take 22,000, divide by 40 times 60. Now I've got 33. So that means this cost is pure variable. Okay. Now if it's pure variable, then it's easy for me. I can just take, for example, 33K divide by 60 times 65. So the amount is 35,750. Actual amount also 35,750. So the variance is 0. Okay. And you look at the last one, admin overhead class. The admin overhead, you see the amount given in the budget. What cost is that? Fixed cost or variable or what? It's fixed. So it's 48. 48 is not changing. So in that case, the budget will also be 48. But the actual amount turns out to be 46. So you have 2,000 favorable variance. Okay? Okay. Now that's it on the flexible budget. Now I finish off all the numbers aspects. Okay. So what we're going to do now is to look at all done. Okay. We're going to look at the theory. So a few more things, then we go on. Now. See, budget, it has been used as a form of feedback control and as well as a feed-forward control. Okay. Okay, this control is what? Control is whatever you do so that you rectify a problem. That's called control. So aside to us, control is actions taken mitigate a problem or to rectify a problem. Okay? Now that's called control. For example, like if you overspend, okay, you overspend. Now then obviously you must cut costs. So when you cut costs, you're going to make sure that you don't overspend so that you maintain your profit. Now this is called control. But the control is based on feedback signal. Okay? The control is based on feedback signal. So the feedback signal is what? Feedback is when something already happened. So it's a feedback. Feedback is based on something which has happened. It's a past. So feedback is something that you have already happened. And the signal that they gave you can be positive as well as negative. Okay? It can be a positive signal as well as a negative signal. So what's the difference between if it's a positive signal or a negative signal? Now, because when people look at feedback, they interpret it as the English word called comment. Feedback is comment. You give me a feedback, maybe you give me a comment, okay? And when you hear the word is a positive feedback, you immediately will think in English positive feedback is good comment, right? No? Well, I got a very positive feedback. Well, I got a very negative feedback. The negative is bad comment. Now you don't mix up that English with our management accounting, okay? Now this positive negative is not good or bad, but is the action that we want you to take. So the nature of your control action, that's what we are saying. Okay? So when feedback is positive, the nature of the action is we want you to maintain the path. Maintain. And negative is we want you to reverse the deviation. Now that's the main difference that we see. Maintaining and reversing. Okay? Okay, so how it works is in this manner. So I just come to page 76. Now, negative means prompt to return. Reverse one. Positive is prompt to reinforce. Reinforce is to maintain. Okay, let's assume that this is my budget. Okay, this is my budget that I want to spend this amount of money. Okay. Now then, of course, I let managers run the show. So the managers will run the show, then he will spend his money, and by right he should follow the plan. But you know, in actual, the amount may not be exactly the same as your budget. There's fluctuation. So when you have fluctuation, right, so the actual costs go up, down, okay? Now, of course, we also know that when costs go up, down, not all fluctuation we want to bother, because usually we give ourselves a margin that, okay, if you don't fluctuate more than this limit, we don't care because it's very small. Okay, now we'll learn that when we come to variance. Okay, but let's say now we realize that the actual cost is escalating. Now, why you know that the actual cost is going up? Well, that's because you are measuring, right? You don't measure, you know or not, you won't know. So it's because you go and assess. Just like, for example, you want to know your cholesterol, you must go and do a blood test. So I'll take a blood test, then only you know it goes up. Okay, so you got to do something. So the fact that you are measuring, that's part of the feedback control system. Okay, so you got a system to measure. So when you measure, let's say the feedback control tell you, let's say at this point, you measure, then from the measure you realized, agree or not? You realize what? You overspend. And it's not little bit, you overspend a lot, correct or not? You overspend a lot. And what will happen naturally if you overspend a lot? Continue overspend, is it? Of course no, right? Of course you will call for a meeting. You will ask the staff and say, hey, hello, what you doing here? Hey, how come the amount overspent? Huh? Why you all didn't control the cost nicely? Then when you start doing all that, the staff will need to do something so that the staff will have to make sure that they don't overspend it. Now, so whatever actions that you implement, we call it as control. Okay, these are control. But the nature of the control action is to do what? Is to bring the cost back, right? Is to bring the cost back to the target. Now all this is called as what? Negative feedback control. Because you want to reverse it. Understand? That's called a negative feedback control. So again, I hope you make it very clear that negative feedback and positive feedback is not good and bad feedback. It's about what is the nature of the control action. So if the nature of control action is to change the path, then that's called negative. Okay? Now, but sometimes you realize that not all the time that you overspend, it must be negative on you. Okay? You'll be thinking that, surprise that you overspend, and then later on your boss realized that, hey, this overspend was good. Maybe let's say, for example, your boss gave you a budget for promotional activity, for marketing. Now then the manager go and spend a lot of money on marketing. So he overspent on the budget. Now when he overspent on the budget, surprisingly, this was an accidental discovery. You know, there are a lot of things like invention are all accident. Okay? You know chemo or not? Chemo is when you have cancer. They use chemotherapy. This chemotherapy was not an invention, but it was an accidental discovery. It was during the war. People used biological weapons. So they released the toxic gas. Then the army soldier all went in to fight the war. They sucked the gas. So when they sucked the gas, they got toxic. Then after that, when they come out that time, the scientists take them to do research. And then they realize that their cell, by right, our cell always multiply one. So the cell proliferation slow down. That it cannot multiply as much. Then the scientists say, hey, toxic can actually make your cell grow slower. Then if you apply this on cancer, good. Cancer is when the cell keep growing, cannot stop. So that was how they discovered something accidentally. Okay. Now, so let's say you did something like that. You go and spend a lot on marketing. Your boss don't want you to do that, but you go and spend. Then accidentally your boss realized, hey, good. From all the marketing you do, our sales go up. Then your boss will ask you to do what? Stop the marketing. Bring it down to budget. No, he'll say continue. Do more. Okay. That is where, even though you overspend, but your boss say, I want you to go more. Now, that is positive idea. Because positive is to maintain, reinforce what you're doing. Anything is possible, okay? Now, I just want you to understand the meaning of positive and negative feedback. That's all. Now, this is what we call as positive, negative feedback, okay? Now, then something very theoretical. I find it all these very stupid one, okay? But part of what you need to learn, so what to do, okay? Okay, you see that in the whole feedback control system, right, there are a few components that will be in action. So these few components, we gave them a term called as sensor, comparator, and effector. Okay? Sensor, comparator, effector. Alright? Now, so what happened now is you do your work. You do your work. So when you do your work, the one that will implement the work is called effector. So effector is the one that will be carrying out the task. Okay, so you will take action. Now, as actions are being taken, you put them into the process. Okay, you put them into a process. Now, this is where outcome will be obtained. You will know the actual result, correct enough? So when the actual results are derived, we need to know what happened. That's why we need someone that will measure the outcome. Okay, you don't measure, you won't know, correct enough? That's why you must get someone to measure the outcome. It could be as simple as an accountant that record the cost. Okay, the accountant that record the cost. Now that's where you measure the outcome. Now, but we use a more technical term that we say this guy or this system that will actually measure the outcome is called a sensor. You know, sensor is to detect. So you detect, that means you measure the amount. So the sensor will produce a report on the actual results. Okay, the sensor will produce a report on the actual results. And then there must be a person that will take the actual results and the budget and compare, correct? So when they start compare, then they will know variant. Alright, when they do comparison, then they'll be able to ascertain the variant, which you might know them as a good variant or not a good variant. Okay, so you're going to know the variant. Now when you know the variant, then obviously if the variant is good, you're happy, you want to maintain. Variant is not good, then you will jump up and down, then you will start to tell the staff, hey, cannot, we do something. Okay, now whatever is this, it doesn't matter, but the issue is from the comparator, you will create feedback signal. You pass a signal. You tell them, okay, spend more or cut down. Now you're going to pass a signal. Now when you pass the signal, then the effector will have to take action again. And of course, this thing will not end. Then it will go back to the process, measure again, report again, compare again, feedback again. Now it will just go on round and round because business is like that. Everything is just keep on repeating. Now that's why we call this as a feedback control loop. Okay, a loop is something that go round and round. That's called a loop. Okay, so when something is repeating, we call it a loop. Okay, now that's called a feedback control loop. Okay. Alright, so again, why we are doing this is I just want you to understand two terms. The meaning of feedback control, okay, what is positive and negative feedback. So you must know the meaning. Now then number two is you might need to know that there are a few components in the feedback control that we gave them a more technical term, like what is called comparator, effector, and sensor. That's all, yeah. Okay. All right. Besides feedback control, there's also feed-forward control. One is back, one is forward. So what's the difference? One is in the front, one is at the back. So it's feedback, feed-forward. So if one is in the front, that means we are referring to something in the future. That's called feed-forward. So this control over here is more to mitigate a potential problem. We are looking at a potential problem. Something that's going to happen. Okay? Something that's going to happen. So it's of future risk. That's why feed forward is based on what we expect to face in the future. Okay? Feed forward is based on the future. So class is like risk management. So I ask you a question. You buy insurance, right? Why do you buy insurance? Well, you foresee you have a risk. Let's say you buy medical card because you're scared one day you fall sick. Then you want to go hospital, you know the cost is very high, that's why you buy insurance. Now, but whether you go hospital or not, you know or not? You don't know. It's something that you don't know whether it's going to happen, but you realize that the risk is there. That's why now you want to do something so that in the event if that risk materialize, I have taken care of the problem. Now that's called feed-forward control. So if you say in terms of budget, example of feed-forward control is applied in this which manner? Now example, if you do a cash budget. Cash budget is a very typical example of feed-forward control. Now why we say that? Now you think and see when you do a cash budget, right? Why do you do a cash budget? Because you want to know your cash flow in the future, fair enough? And when you do a cash budget, let's say you expect that there will be a deficit in 7 months' time. Now class, 7 months' time is future, no, it's not now. 7 months later, you think that the business will have a deficit. So what are you going to do? Well, usually we tell you in cash budget, the low level they teach you, right? Your money not enough, then now you must think of how to solve the problem. Like for example, how to speed up your collection, or how to delay your spending. So certain things don't spend first, or take more loan, ask for overdraft. Now these are all examples of things you do now. You don't wait until then only you do. So that's why when you expect this, now you will arrange for bank overdraft. Now that's what you do now for future problem. Now again class, what do you call that? Feed forward control. Okay? Okay. So that's it. That's about the feedback control, feed forward control. Now, the next thing that we're going to see is okay, the employees' participation. And we are looking at employees' participation in terms of example, the motivation effect. Okay? And why motivation is important? Because motivation is what that will affect productivity. If you recall those days, you probably studied this professor that did the Hawthorne experiment. He went and studied in the factory. If you remember, I don't know if you remember. He go and adjust the lights in the factory by having two groups of workers. So one worker, he go and increase the lights. The other worker is normal. And then he realized that that group that he go and make the lights lighter, brighter, suddenly productivity was better, that they able to do more. All right, then that professor start to say that, okay, what if I do other things? I don't deal with the light. For example, I change the working hour, I give them more breaks. So he start to adjust a lot of conditions, and then he turned back the lights to normal without the worker realizing. Because initially the lights become brighter, productivity go up, then you thought it was the lights. So that's why he start to change other conditions, and then he reduced back the lights to normal, and productivity still go up. That means it was not the lights. So that's why this professor concluded that end of the day, worker productivity is not about the external environment. It's about how you care about what they want. Then eventually, if you know that this is what they want, you allow them to do it, they are happy, then they do more for you. You see, no? So that was what he concluded. All right. Now that's why we think that motivation is extremely important, because motivation will at the end of the day affects the morale of the worker, and morale of the worker will then determine how much they want to put in their effort to go the same direction as you. Can you know? Now that is because if you recall from the beginning, when we teach you budget, remember I've told you what is budget? It's a conversion of strategy but into monetary term, because budget is what the CEO see direction of the company, that he put it into numbers. So that's why when they set strategy, they will put it as budget. So can they achieve the strategy or not will depends on can you achieve the budget or not. You cannot achieve the budget, how to achieve the strategy? So that's why you see my strategy is I want to have market capitalization or market growth of certain amount. I want to control market share. Then I will put my budget into my sales. So I need this sales budget to be achieved. But the salesman all lembek don't want to push. Then you never get the market share, then your strategy fails. So that's why it's all connected. So that's why you want your strategy, then the budget must be there. If the budget is there, then it's important that worker and the budget must go the same direction. That's why we always tell you about go congruent, correct enough? But question is, why would they want to do that? Okay, why would they want to do that? Why would they want to go the same direction as you? This end of the day, it's the management style. We are talking about motivational effect, okay? And we believe that in business, go congruent, C-O-N-G-R-U-N-C, okay? Now we believe that one way that will affect employees' motivation, that why they feel happier, why they are more involved, is the amount that you allow them to participate. Okay, because the more you allow them to participate, the more they feel respected. Now it's like, for example, sometimes you do a discussion with a group of friends. You realize that your friends talk to each other but they don't talk to you. You sit there, then you cannot participate. You cannot say things. You also don't know how to enter into the conversation, and people don't bother you. You have this feeling in your heart like they treat you like they say again. Correct or not? Like as though you are not there one, as though you are not important. Then slowly you feel very down, depressed. You don't feel like you want to continue there. You just feel like I want to go back, like I don't want to be here. Got that feeling before, no? You must have this type of feeling because you just don't feel to be part of them. So that is because you don't have that recognition. But if you realize that I keep talking to you and then I ask your opinion, then you can say, wow, you feel very happy. You chit-chat whole night non-stop. Now that was because of participation. That feeling of being recognized is very important. Now we know that the way we recognize on participation level got 3 types. Okay. Now one is called top-down, or they call impulse down. Okay, top down, impulse. I mean, from the name you should be able to guess what do you mean by top down or impulse. That means from on top it goes down. So these are the senior management. Okay, now this could be the tactical level. Now normally budget it's more between the senior management and the tactical level. The operational level, you don't ask the factory worker you ask the manager. Okay, so we are looking at the senior, the strategic level, the tactical level. Now so a top-down approach is the strategic level will impose. So they say and you listen. That's all. Okay, they say you listen. You don't have to give idea. You don't have to say why. You just do only. Because now you will realize that this type of situation, okay, that you don't have a chance to participate. So that's why at this level, employees' participation is very minimal. Okay, employees' participation is very minimal. Now, is this kind of approach good or not? Now, depending on what you're looking at, okay. Now, because the budget is set by the senior management, all right, budget is set by senior management, we believe you have more challenging target. Okay, so it's set by senior management, so we strongly believe you will have more challenging target, because they will know what is important, they will know what they need to achieve, so they will not set simple easy target for you, so they will set according to what they want and what they see. So this is what we expect. So things are very stretching, and when you are stretching, that means you push yourself to the limit. You don't live in comfort zone. So when you live in comfort zone, you always think that, wow, that's it, I can only do this good. But you didn't realize that you can do better. You look at Olympics, every time they have Olympics, every time they break world record. That means the human, you think that it's already very fast, you run the 100 meter, you thought, wow, this is already so fast already. Then suddenly next Olympic, there's another guy faster. They'll be thinking, how can be so fast? But it's human. Human have this adaptability that you can push yourself further on. So that is how strong we are. So if you don't give yourself that kind of demanding target, you don't work hard, then you will not be able to push up. So that's why the strategic level will think like that. Give challenging target, push you further. But obviously, people will feel that they will not understand the constraint at the bottom level. Okay, they will not understand the constraint at the bottom level. Okay, they don't know how people at the bottom will feel. But these type of things will be always what? Very demotivational. Okay, you look at Apple, that they subcontract production to Foxconn in China. Okay, so to Apple, we want production. Because sales a lot, demand very high, supply not enough, so they want production. So they keep telling them that we need this quantity by this day, this quantity by this day. And to achieve that production, the only thing they can do is what? Work long hours and no holiday. That's why the workers there work like dogs, worse than dogs. Okay, they are like cows, they are like buffalo. Okay, and they really not like human one. And they needed holiday for important events. Chinese, you want to go home, reunion. For example, like they may have this like maybe mooncake festival or Chinese New Year. Chinese New Year is so important for you. You need a break. But the factory guy tell you, sorry, no holiday. Chinese New Year, first day of New Year also must work. Someone must work from morning 8 o'clock until night 11 o'clock. How do you feel? But the people there on top, they don't care, man. They just say, I want this, go ahead. That's why eventually the worker all at the bottom cannot tahan. Then they fight. So when they fight, they take a lot of things, they strike against the factory, they come and do all these protests. So these are the problems that you feel. That's about top down. Okay? So that's why at top down, you expect less motivational effect. Okay? Now, then we have another one called bottom up, which you should be able to guess what is that. Now, we call this as very participative. That means the strategic and tactical level budget is set by asking what the tactical one. So instead of we give you a target, we ask what do you want, and then you tell us and we accommodate your budget. Okay? Which obviously if you look at this budget is very people friendly. Correct? It's very people friendly. It's just like, for example, Najib asks you, what do you want? You don't want GST? Okay, then no GST. Or you want me to step down? Okay, I step down. Okay, So it's like whatever you want, they do for you, example. Now, but this type of thing, the problem is what? When you start to ask what people want, they take advantage, right? Correct? I ask you, as a worker, what do you want? I want to work 6 hours a day and I want to have double my pay. then you become me, we reverse, I become your worker. So you think and see, you always want a lot of comfort. You always want to be relaxed. You want to do less and earn more. That's your mindset. Okay. That's why when you start to do in this manner, we are afraid that there will be a deviation from their strategic goals, because you will want something easy, but obviously it become very accommodative. So you expect people here all very happy, okay, because you fulfill what they want. Follow? Now, but we always say these two are extreme law. One is you want exactly what the people on top. One is you listen to people at the bottom. Now, can there be something that we compromise? Now, so the compromise is you come to the middle. So we call this as a negotiated. Okay, is a negotiated style of budgeting, so that we expect give and take. Okay, we expect give and take. That the strategic and the tactical level will actually come together and have a discussion. Okay, that they will have consultation with each other and see, okay, this is what I want and this is what you can give me. Now, can we give and take and compromise a bit? Now, this approach we believe, because it's from mutual understanding, that both sides agreed on the target, so it's definitely more achievable. Okay, and obviously you have the motivational effects that you want, because you give them a chance to give what they want to say and you respect what they say. Okay, and because when you compromise, they agreed to it, so it's easier for you to buy in the support. Okay, so it's easier for you to buy in the support. Okay, so theoretically it seems like that's the better style. Okay, but there are also arguments from people that they say, what do you mean by compromise? You either do the best or you don't do. There's no such thing as do in the middle. So that's where people also argue that this may not be the best way, because you seem to compromise, and when you compromise, you are not going exactly to where you want. Okay, now, so all that is about employees' participation, which is in page 78. Okay, now I've done with you 79. The computer aspects, when we did the question on cash budget, I've explained to you, so I don't want to go through the notes. Okay, so plus I've done your budgeting things, so I'll have some example in page 81, right? That there's some example. The answers are at the back, so you just go back and try. Okay, so finish with chapter 5. Right, we're going to start with chapter 6 on time series. Now, how important is time series in F5? It's a revisit of what you learned in F2. Now, last time series is in the syllabus one. That's why if you see your F5 past year question, you can see time series question came out in the exam. But that was last time. Then the new examiner who took over, she studied through the F5 syllabus, and she said that, hey, a lot of things in F5 you learn in F2. Then you learn again in F5, it's duplicating. So what she did was, she streamlined the syllabus. She take out those things that is already in F2. She said in F5, I don't want to put in the syllabus, but I assume the student will know. So that's why it's more dangerous. She assumed you must know, because you learn in F2. So if she asks you a question in F5, you cannot say that, hey, why you ask this? It's not in the syllabus. Actually, you learn in F2. So you learn in F2, she can ask in F5. But because she take out from the syllabus, one thing you should feel happier is the chance that she will ask this as the main question is not there. That means she will not take time series and ask as a 20 marks, a long question, 15 marks. She won't do that. You know why? Because it's not something so specific in the syllabus. But she can ask a question, one budget question, that maybe inside got a 3 mark, 4 mark adjustment using time series. She can do like that. Understand? So that's why in this case, the focus is not here. But I need you to understand the step, because if it's part of the question, you still need to know how to handle. Now, when we do time series forecasting, what do you mean by time series? A series of value over a period of time. Okay, that's called time series. Like the sales quantity of, let's say, Toyota Camry in Malaysia for the past 60 months. How many units that you sell? That's called a time series. Okay. Now we use time series as a way of doing forecasting. Okay. So what we do is in time series forecasting, we believe that the results of the time series we have is made up of 4 components. They got trend, seasonal variation, cyclical, and random. Okay, you learned this before. What is trend? Long-term movement, long-term underlying movement. Season is short-term changes, short-term fluctuation. Cyclical is the medium-term factor, that they don't happen until a medium-term period. And what is medium-term will depends on what you're saying. For example, if you talk about economy, you know, economy got boom, okay, got depression. Now then that cycle in economy, then you realize that a cycle in economy could be like, they say 10 years. That's why we realized that like in 1997, there was the Asian economy crisis, okay? And then in 2008, the economy crashed again. Now it's 2015, and now you hear everything very good. So you hear story that they say US has the highest stock point, Europe also now very high, everything is very good. And that's where things are very scary. Because when everything is very, very, very good then is where they will start to fall. Because it's when everything becomes so good, then suddenly confidence drop. Now, so that's why they are predicting maybe it's 2018 or 2017, another 10 years is going to come already, because it's 97, 2008, now it's 2015. So it's just around this 2 or 3 years. So, but we don't know when. It could come earlier, it could come later, but it's around that. So you get ready, you get ready. Okay, like y'all must save a lot of money now. You just save your cash. Don't do anything. Save and save, save and save. Whether you can save 30,000 or 50,000 or what, until that day, when this time come, right, you must take all your saving. I always tell people, you sell your car, sell your house, sell your son, sell your wife, sell all, okay, and have this money and buy all the good stock. Then in 1-2 years, you see your value double or triple. It's double, triple in 1-2 years. Your 50,000, maybe 2 years become 200,000. You can earn so fast. You work cannot earn. So that's why now you just save. Trust me. Keep your bullet. Now it's keep bullet. Okay, save. The time will come. Be patient. All right, be patient. Okay. Now that is something that happened in medium. So what is the medium term? As I said, it depends on what business you do. Like I say, economy may take a term like maybe every 10 years. Okay. Like for example, ACCA market that we have, we realize that the medium term is around 5 to 6 years, because there's the time that ACCA, every time they change the syllabus, they have structural changes. Then the thing will change a bit. Alright. Now then we have this random variation. Random is something that you don't expect. It just occur by itself. So it's something unexpected. Okay. Now going back to the theory, the concept on forecasting. We predict future. Okay, we predict future. But when you predict future, how do you do it? Now our model is based on a typical limitation that we predict future based on the past. Okay, we predict future based on the past. Now that's the issue about what we're doing. Now, so I ask you, for example, we just want to learn concept. You learn before me, okay? Now, let's say I ask you, tell me what will the sales be for April 15. Okay, tell me what will this. I don't care what product. I just say now this is a chart. You come to the front and simply draw me a dot. Where will the sales be? Is it here or here or here or here or here or here or here? Where? You say, how do I know? Can see or not? Why? I don't even know something about the product. You ask me to predict. How to predict? Out of nothing, I cannot predict. That's why you must at least know the past. That's why you say, hey, you tell me the sales for the last 6 months first. Then only I can tell you. Okay? Now, when you want to know the sales of the past, it's because you needed the trend that will guide you that more or less, where is the direction that things are heading. You want the trend. Okay? So if I start to tell you now, okay, this is the trend. Okay, I tell you this is the trend. Now, if you know that this line is trend, now things are easier. But of course, how do you come up with a trend? Well, you came out with the trend is you based on the past result, and we will give you the technique later. All right, that you based on the past result, then you start to see that there's the trend. So you'll be able to draw the trend, and when you draw the trend, then you can come and tell me that, oh, now I can more or less tell you, I will estimate or I will predict the sales is around the trend one. Okay, the sales is around the trend. The way you see that there's this example like people, they do stock market analysis. There are two types of people that trade stock. One is called the fundamental analysis. Fundamental analysis is they don't look at chart. They look at logic. They look at business. They look at economy. Then they start to say can buy, cannot buy. Now, the other type is they don't care what business. They don't look at your number. They don't look at economy. They look at the chart. Because they believe that when the chart fluctuates in certain manner, it has incorporated people's expectations. So that's called the technical analysis people. Then they will look at time series. Then they will see where is the trend, where was the top limit, where was the bottom limit. Then they will tell you that the share price will drop until this level. Usually they won't drop. Then they increase until this level, they won't increase. Then you must sell. Now, this is based on technical. That's where they incorporate time series also. Okay. Now that's why we look at the trend. We can tell you. Based on the trend, it should be going around this level. But even you say go around this level, the next question is, you tell me, is on top or at the bottom? Because if you say it goes around this level, is it going to be here or is it going to be here? Now, to answer that question, what do you need? You need to know what's the seasonal variation. Correct? No? Because the season will tell you whether this season is up or down, correct? No? So if let's say, for example, I'm giving you again, that I say, now this is, now very artificial, okay? In real life, you don't see pattern like that, okay? But it's very artificial that now I tell you, over the past 7 months, this is the results that I've achieved. That 1 month drop, the other month go up. Then it drop again, then it go up. It drop again, it go up. But along the way, when it go up and drop, go up and drop, it's still moving upward. Man. That moving upward is what we call as the trend. That's why when we draw trend, one way of drawing trend is you just look at the result and then you just use your imagination to draw a line that cuts through the middle. That's how you draw trend. Alright? Now, so once you've got the trend, then I ask you, tell me what's your prediction for this period. Now then you're going to say, very simple. If 1 month up, 1 month down, if this month down, the next month must be up one. Now then you will tell me that this is what I predict. The sales is around this level. Okay. Now why do you say that? Because I've looked at the trend and I've looked at the seasonal variation. Follow? Okay. When we do forecasting, it's always short term. Okay? See, you don't do long-term forecasting, all right? You do short-term forecasting. You don't do long-term forecasting. Because if you want to do a long-term forecasting, environment change very fast. And whenever environment change, a lot of things cannot apply. You cannot say, use the chart and forecast what the share price is going to be in 10 years, 20 years time. Because a lot of things will be very different, okay? Now, when you want to do a long-term forecasting, the models that we will use will include, for example, we look at simulation. That means we must start to imagine various scenarios that, okay, what happens if 10 years time, if there's a World War III? You never think, you always think everything is like that, like very normal. But what if 10 years time there's a world war? Like maybe Russia suddenly fight with the Ukraine and then the US go in, then China cannot take it, China also fight. Then North Korea say, wow, you all want to fight, I also want to show off, shoot a few bomb atom. Wow, then suddenly the world war is coming. Then all of the world population all died by half. Wow, very drastic. Okay, simulation. We start to imagine various scenarios that if this thing happen, okay, what will be the result? If this thing happen, that's usually for long term. Now, but for short term, we don't need, because we know more or less what things going to be in the near future. Now, that's why when you do short term forecasting, you only need the trend, and you only need the seasonal variation. Okay, you only need the trend, you only need the seasonal variation. Now, why cyclical you don't need? Because cyclical is medium term. And we only forecast short term. So this element you don't have to put it in. And why random is not in? Because random is something you cannot predict. So if you cannot predict, then you cannot put it in as well. You take it out. So because of that, we understand when we do forecasting, we believe that y is what? Y is the results. Because when you draw a graph, this is y-axis. So y is the results. So the y value is made up of two things. It's made up of trend with seasonal variation. But when you say y is made up of trend and seasonal variation, then you must ask yourself how these two things must come together. So they can come together either multiplicative, or they come together as additive, multiplicative. Now actually time series is a very technical analysis. Whatever we learn is so narrow. Okay. Now why we use a multiplicative or additive model? Now we use additive when the elements are independent. Okay, when the elements are independent. Now, we use multiplicative when the elements are dependent. Then you will be saying, what do you mean by independent, dependent? Actually, you must look at the diagram or the history to determine whether they're independent or they're dependent. Now, example of independent, just example here, okay? Now, let's say I draw a very artificial chart, okay? That this is the result. Like up, down, up, down, up, down, it's very artificial. The pattern very uniform, okay? Now, you can see this is the trend. Okay, you can see this is a trend. And you can also see the fluctuation, correct? Okay. The trend can shift one, understand? Trend can shift. That suddenly it can jump up, or suddenly it can collapse also. Because it may not be just one straight line one, correct? That's why you can see we can have multiple trend line. It's just like your demand, your supply. You learn economy, you also can have a shift. Like confident drop, confident increase, expectation. A lot of things can cause a shift. So if there's a shift, let's say suddenly the trend shifted in this manner, that it goes up steeply. So you start to see that it becomes like that, goes up. But then you still see that although the trend has goes up so much, the fluctuation due to the season is still the same. It's still up, down, around that same level. Now, something that we look at it in this manner, okay, is because the trend and the seasonal variation, they don't affect each other. That's why they are called independent. That's why when we want to use the model, right, we must look at the past. You see the past and you look at the pattern, then only you decide. It's not I tell you, okay, use this model or this model. It's not I tell you, it's you must see which one to use. But of course in exam, they don't do that. Okay? That's why in exam, they will just tell you, use additive model or use multiplicative model. Okay, that's all. Now, so a dependent one will be, because, for example, that this is how things are, and suddenly, because there was a shift, and once you combine the effect of the change in the trend, you will start to see that the movement become more dramatic. The up is higher, the down is higher. It's no longer like the past that they're very stable. That's because the effect of the increase in the trend is also compounded together with the seasonal variation. So when they go up more, they go down more. So it's so different pattern in this kind of thing. That's where we use multiplicative. Now anyway, I'm just discussing this for your knowledge. Okay, this is just for knowledge, it's not really for exam. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we need to go through again how you determine trend and how you determine seasonal variation. Okay. Now I will go back to your notes now, page 90. Okay. These are the sales achieved for the past 12 months. Okay. So how do you determine trend? If you're going to use line of best fit, that we're going to use eye judgment. Okay. Now one way of using eye judgment is obviously we're going to put up the graph first. Okay. So my lowest is 4001. My highest is 5000. Okay, so January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Okay, so 4-1, 4-2, now, so in the graph, Okay? Okay, so we start with 4, 5 lah. Now we just put in the dot lah. Okay, 4, 5. And then 4, 3. Then 4, 1. And then 4, 6. And then 4, 7. Then 4, 8. Then 4, 4. Then 4, 5 again. Then 4, 7. Then 4, 6. And 4, 8. 5,000. Okay? Yeah, I got I just give you a reference. Okay? And in exam, they will not test this technique one, because if they test like that, very hard for the examiner to mark your answer. Okay? Now, you just plot in for all the respective month, what's the value. And once you plot in, right, you connect all these values. Okay, you connect all these values. Now this is the time series of your sales over a year. Okay, there's a time series of the sales over a year. Now then what you do, right, is you're gonna ask yourself, imagine if you're gonna have one line that they will cut through all these values in the center. Okay, that it will be in the center. It must be in between all the value. Now where will that line be? Now then you probably will start to imagine that the value seems to be fluctuating around this level. Right now, the invisible line that you can imagine is there's a line on top, there's a line at the bottom, there's the two lines that go all the way up. So in the middle will be the center of this. So where will be the center of this? So you will say that probably this is the trend line. Now you may not get the line like me. Your line could be slightly lower, slightly higher, but it's around there. As long as you don't draw something that is completely out. Like for example, you tell me, Mr. La, I draw this line like that. So that doesn't make sense. How can the line be like that? Okay, the fluctuation is there, you draw the line there. Okay, now so as long as you know that these are the two values, and then they're in the middle of that, that's how you draw line of specific. Okay, now so I believe there's no issue with that. Okay, we go on. Okay, the second technique that they normally do with trend is they use moving average. Now what is average? Average for 3 months is take 3 months total, divide by 3. The average of 3 months is the value of 3 months together divided by 3. But why they say moving? Because they want to make it revolving basis. Okay, they want to make it a revolving basis. So how do you make it like a revolving basis? What do you mean by a revolving basis? Now example, I given you a table here with the same 12 months, right? So I first give you 3 months total. Now we take 3 months total. So we take January, February, March, add together. But class, when you add the 3 months together, where do you stop and where do you draw the point? Now you must stop in the middle. Why stop in the middle? Because we look at trend as something that shows as an average fluctuation. That's why we tell you between these two upper and lower limit, you take the center. So it's always the middle. It's always the midpoint. Now, if it's always the midpoint, then the idea is, if you have January, February, and March, the midpoint must be February, because that's the middle of the 3 months. Okay. So 4005, 4003, and 4001, we have it as 12,009. Now that is divide by 3. Now this is the 3-month moving average. And think about this, okay? If you don't use a moving average technique, okay, you don't use a moving average technique, so what will happen is, you see, let's say after this 3 months, I'll take this next 3 months, okay? So if I take 4, 6, 4, 7, 4, 8, and I get 14,001, and I get 4,007. Now, if I do my calculation in this manner, you will have a problem of less accuracy. Why less accuracy? Because suddenly, when you want to predict or estimate the trend line, you are jumping from one period straight to the next period, and you skip 2 months. So the value becomes not that accurate. That's why to solve or to prevent that problem, what we do is we revolve it. That means we say, never mind, we take the next 3 months on a rolling basis. Then we take the next 3 months on the rolling basis. So we want to have an average that it moves on. That's why it's called a moving average. That was why they call it in that way. Okay. Now, so you just have to keep repeating. Add up the 3 months and then divide it by 3. All right. So 4, 3, 4, 1, 4, 6. Okay. Now 4, 7, 4, 8, 4, 4. One, 3, 6. We will have the last one stop in November. So that's your last 3 months you can have. Okay. Now this type of thing is very tedious. So that's why have all these been tested in the exam? Never. They have never tested. They have given question on time series that they immediately give you the trend. They skip testing all that because they've calculated it for you, because it's all mathematics only. Now, so we know that the moving average is the trend. Okay, moving average is a trend. So when you've got your trend, right? When you've got your trend, then you can make use of the trend to find your seasonal variation. Okay, you can use a trend to find seasonal variation. Now it's just mathematics only, class. This is Y, this is T. If this is Y, this is T, then what is S? Now, if Y equals to T plus S, then S must be Y minus T. Or if Y equals to T times S, then S must be Y divide T. So it depends on if you are using additive or multiplicative model. The value is different. So if you're using additive model, you just minus them, Y minus T, so that your seasonal variation is cosine. Then 4001 minus 4333, the seasonal variation is minus 233. 4006, 4467 is plus 133. Now the rest all I just leave it to you. Okay. Now, so a negative shows that is a down season. So the results is below the trend line. And a positive means it's an up season, that it will be above the trend line. Okay. Now, if you do a multiplicative model, right, what you do is you divide. So when there's no seasonal variation, the value equals to 1. That means there's no season fluctuation. Okay, then 4001 divided by 4333, you get 0.946. So less than 1 is a down season. Whereas 4006 divide 4467, 1.03. Now that's an up season. Okay. Now that's how we find trend and seasonal variation. Now once you find these two figures, you're already half complete already. Then you just have a further step to go to just finish all the forecasting. Okay. Now, so we have looked at the second method called moving average. Now what's the third method? Okay. Now before I come to the third method, we have one small issue that I need to discuss further. Is when we have an even period average. Okay. See class, if you're asked to determine moving average to determine your trend, if the period is odd period, you don't have a problem. Now like 3 months, there's no problem because the middle of 3 months is the second month. So the value you have for moving average is the same line with what you have with the actual. That's why it's okay for you to find seasonal variation by straight away minus or divide, because they're in the same line. Now, but when you have an even period, you're going to have a problem. Now, I'm giving an example. If this is an even period, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. They want us to find 4-quarter average. Where is the midpoint? Now I will not do all because I just want to show you. You know the technique, you know what to do. The rest all repeated. Now class, you see, the middle of 4 quarter is the center of 2 and 3. So it's 2.5. That's the middle. So if you put that as a middle, now imagine if I add up all the 4 quarter. This is my 4-quarter moving total. Okay. If I divide this by 4, I have 4-quarter moving average. But now that's where the problem comes in. You see with this number, how you're going to determine seasonal variation. Because your trend is in between the two periods. So if you want to find S, right, you must take Y minus T or Y divide T. But this Y is for quarter 2. This Y is for quarter 3, but this T is 2.5. So you cannot calculate. Now that's the reason why we need you to do one extra adjustment. Now what you do is you just calculate the rest of the moving average. Now this is the second one. Now we have it as 113,700 divided by 4, 28.425. Okay, now I do two more figure. Okay, just do two more figure, then I'll stop there lah. Okay, so we will have this 4 so 115,300 116,500 29,125 then 28,825. Now, so class, that's what we're going to do now. In order for us to get seasonal variation, we need to get trend that's in line with an actual value. So what we do to solve this is we can take these two average and we average again. So what we do is we take 28,275 plus 28,425, we add them together, we divide it by 2. Now that's 28,530. So you average it once more. Now then theoretically this is 4 quarter, 4 quarter. So if 4 quarter and 4 quarter they average again, it becomes, we call it 8 quarter. Okay, so it's 8 quarter moving average, but anyway it doesn't matter because it's just trend. Okay, it's just a trend. But now we solve our problem because now your trend is the same line as your actual value. And when they're in the same line as your actual value, you will be able to calculate seasonal variation. But that's the solution. That's why we have to average twice. That's all. Okay. Now, so the next one, if we take 28,425, 28,825, we will get 57. 250. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to divide. Divide by 2, 28. Sorry, 625. Then 28,825, 29,125 divide by 2. So class, if I want my seasonal variation, if I use additive model, multiplicative, S is Y minus T, Y divide T. So 272 minus 28350, we get negative 1150. 279, 28625, negative 725. 29,000, we get 25. Okay. Now likewise, if you do again by dividing them, you get 0.959, 0.975, 1.001. Okay. Now I won't need to go on with everything because the rest all mathematics. You just need to know the technique. Okay. Now this is what you do when you have even period averaging. Okay. Now the last technique, which usually what examiner will do, is examiner normally will use the method 3. Not that he will ask you to calculate, but he will give it to you in the question in this manner. Okay? That in exam, trend equation is given to you. Okay? That trend equals to, now they will have A plus BQ, for example. What is this? It's a straight line equation. And you know, in a straight line equation, if you remember back last time when you learned cost behavior, you can use high-low method. So take the highest, lowest point, draw a straight line. Now, another way is we say with all the fluctuation, you use linear regression, that you take in account all the values, then you use that to draw a straight line. But that will be based on formula. That the formula will calculate for you what is A plus BX. Okay? Now, the same thing we're going to do here. We are using formula, regression, calculate the straight line. Okay? Now, so this is the sales quantity for product E for the last 2 years. Okay? So now they give you 2012 and 2013, quarter 1 to quarter 4. Now derive a regression equation for the data that you have here. So come up with what is A plus BX. Now, traditionally, when you want to do linear regression, this is the working. You put x, y, xy, and x squared. Okay? So again, class, 90% examiner will not ask you to calculate. She will give it to you, because that's what we see in the past here. Okay? Okay, so now based on this x, y, and x squared, you're going to fill in all the value. And then you're going to find what's the summation, what's the total, and then use the total, apply the formula, and work out what's the equation. Okay, now you fill in the blank. So the thing that you will think nicely is what is X and what is Y. Now last time when we learned cost behavior, that if I want you to find variable and fixed cost, Y is value, X is quantity. That's usually the case. That's why we put Y equals to A plus BX. So this A is your fixed cost, X is your quantity. Then B is your variable cost per unit. Now, but that is cost. Okay, that is cost. Sorry. Now we are looking at time series. Time series are not drawn according to amount and quantity. Time series is drawn according to time over your value, which can be any value. So the issue now is, if this is time, then what do you do to represent time? Now time is just a sequential increase in value. That means if you say days, Monday, increase another day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Or you say month, January, increase one more month, February, March, April. Now that means we know that time will just follow sequence, that it will just increase by 1 every time you pass one period. So if you increase by 1, then we can just use a numerical sequence to represent time. For example, we say we start with number 1 to represent quarter 1 of 2013. We go with number 2 to show that the quarter increased by 1 more quarter. Then we go on with number 3, number 4, number 5, and so on. Okay? Now, so if you ask me, then that is X. So your X is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it will just keep going on with 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way down. Okay? Now, so that will tell you, for example, if I say 6 is what? Is 2013 quarter number 2. Because every 4 quarter is a year. So when it comes to number 5, right, it goes to 2013. This is 2012. So if I ask you, tell me what is the quarter value if you are in 2014 quarter 1. The value is number 9. Oh, so number 9 will be 2014 quarter 1. Okay, and then 10 is quarter 2. That's how you must understand. Okay. Now then, what is your Y? Your Y will be your quantity that you have. Okay, now again class, I will just use calculator. Okay, so I've shown this before last time, so I'm going to use calculator. Okay, first I switch this to regression mode, then I clear my memory, making sure that everything is clean inside. Okay, then we just do XY lah, So X is 1, 31,000, and plus 2, 43,005, 3, 45,006, 4, 56,004, 5, 40,100, 6, 48,000, 7, 55,002, and 8, 68,008. Now I've got all the value key in. Okay, so what is my answer? A value, I just do here. Okay, so using calculator, A is 31754 and B value is 3738. Now, which means trend equals to (31754) plus 3738. But you cannot just say like that, because if not, people don't understand what is Q, where Q is the quarter value that 2012 quarter 1 is 1. You got to start with the base year. So the base year is 2012. So if you tell people 2012 Q1 is 1, then they know where to start counting 1, 2, 3, 4 and so on. Okay? Okay, now, so once you have the equation, I'm doing this as a last, then I'll give you a break, okay? Now, once you have the equation, you will use the equation to develop trend. And when you have trend, you can calculate seasonal variation. Now, example, what is my trend for 2012 quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3. Now I just use quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3. Now 2012 quarter 1 Q is 1, right? So 31754 plus 3738 times 1 is 35492. Okay, then for quarter 2 is what? That means you change Q to 2 long. Okay, you change Q to 2. Or if you can see and understand, we are increasing it by the same proportion, because 1 to 2 increase by 1 time. That means you just keep adding 3738, 3738, 3738. You just keep adding. It's actually what they mean. But you multiply also can, you add also can. So you add 3738. I got 39230, 42968. Now class, this is what? Trend. And you have the trend figure from the equation. You can find seasonal variation. How to find? You either minus or you divide, depending on which model you want to use. So if you are using, let's say, the additive model, S is Y minus T, or S is Y divide T. Now, this is the value, class. 31,000 is the actual. 31 minus 35,492. You get minus 4,492. Or 31,000 divide 35,492, you get 0.873. 43,005 minus 39,230, you get 4,270. Or you divide it, you get 1.109. You can follow? Now that's how you find trend using the third method, and how you use that to find seasonal variation. Now in exam, I've told you, examiner will give this to you. You don't need to calculate. So in the question, examiner will straight away tell you the trend equation has been determined as what. Then they give you the actual value. So what you do is, you take this, calculate the trend. Then when you calculate the trend, you immediately take the actual value, and then the trend you minus or divide to get the seasonal variation. But you just move on from that. That's why I say in exam, normally they don't ask you to calculate trend. because they don't want to go through all the tedious calculations. Follow on, okay? Now that's the first thing that we see about time series. Okay, now I think we take a short break, alright? We'll come back then, we'll